Today's speaker comes from a region which actually, or at least I'm relatively unfamiliar with regarding their presentation or being present in Western universities, namely the Arabian Peninsula. It's therefore a special pleasure for me to introduce Cuneyt Yenigun, who is currently associate professor and also head of the Department of Economics and Political Science at Sultan Qaboos University in Muscat, in Oman. After having received his PhD, Cuneyt, first of all, he finished his PhD at the Istanbul University, and after his PhD, he also held a postdoc position at Florida State University. His general fields of interest are international relations and especially international conflict resolution and security studies. And he's basically published widely on conflicts in quite different regions of the world, which include the Balkans, for instance, obviously the Middle East as one of the most conflict-driven areas of the world, and also the Gulf states. And given this expertise and his current position, I think that he's probably one of the most suitable scholars to analyze the current political situation in the Arabian Peninsula in general. And therefore, I'm pretty much looking forward to his talk on today's topic, Oman's new diplomacy, because Oman has a special kind of relationship in that region, as most of you will probably know. So I'm pretty much looking forward to his analysis of in which way the situation has changed here. So without further ado, Cuneyt, I think it's best that I hand over the floor to you and get started.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much for inviting me actually to this very special group and Adam Smith seminars. It is a pleasure for me, and I'm very proud of being with you all. Thank you very much. I'm told actually to talk about the Oman's diplomacy. I'm not sure it is still new or old, but new Sultan also has been pursuing actually the old type of Oman's active neutrality diplomacy in the region. Oman is one of the 6 GCC countries. GCC was established in 1981, but unlike Saudi Arabia, unlike Emirates, unlike Kuwait, Oman has never intercorrelated with any international conflicts in the last 50 years. Actually, it has seen actually 2 internal domestic conflicts in 1960s and 1970, but in international arena, actually, it became actually a very peaceful country in the last 5 decades. First, in 1970s, 80s, actually, they solved actually border issues with its neighbors, with Yemen, with Saudi Arabia, with United Arab Emirates. As you know, actually, United Arab Emirates has just dissolved from Oman in 1971-72. So, but they have never went to the conflict, actually. They just separated peacefully, like Czechoslovakia, Czech and Slovakia. They just separated like a very peaceful way in 1970, at the beginning of 1970. Oman, in compare with the other Arabian Gulf countries, Arabian Peninsula countries, actually, Oman has very different culture, very different religionic understanding, and also historical background and different culture, definitely. And it reflects, actually, to Oman's diplomacy very easily seen. Oman has been putting a kind of, let's say, equal distance, actually, in a triangle between Gulf states, means Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, and Iran on the other side, and Euro-Atlantic zone. They have very good relations. Oman has very good relations, actually, with Euro-Atlantic zone, especially with the United Kingdom, later France, but especially today, nowadays, with the United States, definitely. They are, according to some scholars, actually, they are the closest ally to the Euro-Atlantic zone within the GCC, within the Gulf Cooperation Council states, means Saudi Arabian Peninsula, let's say. This is a kind of introduction, but let me tell you some facts, historical background of the Omani diplomacy. For example, Oman is the first Arab state which sent actually the first ambassador to the United States when almost 180 years before. Actually, there was no other Arab country at that time. All of them were under the Ottoman Empire. But Oman and Ottomans were, and Yemen, they were neighbors actually in the region. But very interestingly, it is the first Arab country. They sent actually first ambassador to the United States in 1840. And it went actually with this way. They're matured and well-developed actually state psychology reflects in internal domestic politics, but also international relations too. I'm not going to talk about the historical background of Oman, but let me tell you, Oman had a kind of very big empire actually, from Pakistan to Mozambique, especially maritime empire, let's say. So this empire psychology, historical experience actually reflects to its diplomacy too. Later they declined. They were very powerful state in the region, but later they became actually a small state after losing almost all territories abroad, including Emirates. So they are now one of the smallest era of Oman history in the last 300 years. And during the Cold War, Oman was very small size and small size country in terms of power politics in international arena, but they were on the side of the capitalist world. In divided world, communist capitalist world, it was on the side of the capitalist pact. They have never been in NATO or something, but militarily, but also politically, actually, they were supporting actually West because of very good relations with the United Kingdom until 1971. As you know, 1971, actually, United Kingdom militarily withdrawn from the Gulf region, but they just stayed 7 more years actually within Oman. And after United Kingdom withdrawn from the region militarily, they made military agreements during the Cold War with the United States. And there is a Masira Island on the eastern part of Oman. It was before military base of the United Kingdom. And this military base, a part of Masira Island, it was given actually to the United States for 5 years, and it is renewable. Until 1980s, until today, means 40 years, this military agreement within the United States and Oman is being renewed, actually. It's still renewing. That's why they have militarily, politically, and also economically very good relations with especially the United Kingdom and United States. And during the Cold War, for example, in 1979, Iran, made a coup, Iran converted to Islamic Republic. And American embassy, as you know, was under the capture of the young people more than 18 months, as you know. For example, the United States used Oman to rescue the embassy workers, hostages actually, from Iran. They actually attempted twice, unsuccessfully, but these attempts actually were just managed, orchestrated from Oman. So they used actually even Masira Island. So when the conflictual time, Oman is taking a side on the Western way. But during the peacetime, this is our topic of today. Today, Oman, in the last 50 years, actually, last 45 years, Oman has established a kind of Omani foreign policy on 4 main pillars. These are official, explanations in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, and always actually these are the official explanations. Means good relations with the neighbors, long-standing maritime traditions from Pakistan to Mozambique, pragmatism rather than ideology or short-term plans, means, they are balancing, which we are going to see today, and security is security mentality of the state actually is based on the cooperation rather than conflict. These are the main official explanations actually of the state. But let's see the practice and deeper details in elaborative way how Oman has been following and pursuing actually diplomacy in the region and international arena. Oman has been trying actually, like Norway, like Austria, like Switzerland, has been trying a neutral, I put actually natural, it should be natural policy, but it is a little bit different than Switzerland or Norway. It is active neutrality. It is official explanation, and what doesn't mean active neutrality is needed actually a little bit deeper elaboration. Neutral in general. For example, in Iran, although Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, they see Iran as antagonistic or antagonistic relations. Oman does not see, for example, Iran as enemy, but as a neighbor, and their relations should be good according to Omani foreign policy. For example, in Myanmar, they just send actually the notice, but not deep way. With the European Union, for example, they are very neutral, not taking a side, not taking against. In Yemen, for example, they are helping both sides, especially for the handicapped people, for the hospital assistance cooperation by both sides, Houthis and governmental sides. Actually, Oman is sideless. For example, in Syrian issue, Oman is only Arab state actually which has never closed a Syrian embassy, very interestingly. So they are still keeping actually neutral position in Yemen issue also. They have been actually offered actually 3 times to be a mediator in Syria, but it didn't work. For example, the Russian Federation policies, Chinese, after the New World Order, after the 91 actually, they have taken a kind of place in between also United States, definitely 70% on the side of United States, but because of the economic relations, now they have a balance, a kind of neutral balance, a kind of neutrality actually with China, for example, with Russia, for example. Even they are very neutral in intergovernmental organizations. For example, NATO has launched in Istanbul Cooperation Initiation, as you know, for example, like Mediterranean Dialogue or NATO-Indian dialogue, NATO-Russia Council, NATO PFP, right? Partnership for Peace. So NATO has been launching actually new initiations and cooperations. They have launched, NATO has launched also for the Gulf Istanbul Cooperation Initiation. Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, they accepted. They are the partners now of NATO, but Oman is out. They didn't say no, they didn't say yes. They say, we are thinking, okay. For example, they are out of OPEC. Very interestingly, Oman is a unique country which is not a member of Red Crescent or Red Cross. You can see on the world map on the right side, right corner, you could see it is just Oman is only, let me make it big for you. You could see, anyway, you could see Oman is gray over there. So very interestingly, it is only country in the world, not a member of Red Crescent or Red Cross. Very interestingly. And they say, when we ask why, they say, we are neutral. Even Red Crescent or Red Cross, sometimes they could politicized, so we would like to be out of it. They say this. These are neutrality sides, actually. If you have a question at the end, I can go deeper. But how they put actually the active neutrality title for their foreign diplomacy, foreign policy, because in some cases, actually, they are active. For example, in Qatar, they took a side silently. They took a side silently. For example, they have been, supporting actually Qatar economy. They have given actually air space using authority. Otherwise, Qatar was going to be locked down. And they have been a mediator actually in different cases, which I'm going to talk about that next slide. In the last 20 years, they became a mediator in the region in several, maybe more than 25 cases. And they have very active, if Britain or United States actually are on the stage, actually they are becoming actually active on their sides. So they are, let's say 20%, 15% they are active, 85%, 90% they are neutral. So let me talk about mediatorship in Oman diplomacy, especially in the last 2 decades. Oman is very, very active in mediatorship in between Iran, Yemen, United States, United Kingdom, and France. Let's say among these 5 actors actually, Oman became in the middle, as a middleman, as a facilitator and mediator, definitely. For example, in 2003, 2005, 2009, 2011, 2013, British spies, according to Iran's allegations, claim, were captured in Iran. They are imprisoned for 8 years something, or Iranian spies were captured in Florida, Texas, Georgia, so they are imprisoned. Or American people actually, some people were captured, were arrested actually in Iran. American people actually, some Navy people or civilians were arrested in Yemen by Houthis. So these are all released by the mediatorship of Oman, even in 2019, 2 years before. So when something happens, Iran comes to Oman to mediate with the United States. When something happens, America or Britain, France come to Oman to mediate with Yemen, Houthis, or Iran. So we can say definitely it has been used actually a kind of back channel, but officially facilitator and especially mediator among these actors, or between Euro-Atlantic zone and Iran and Yemen conflictual areas. Oman is a kind of peace island actually in the region, and a very trusted friend by the Euro-Atlantic zone, definitely. For example, between 2011 and 13, Switzerland and Oman were the main mediators in official talks between United States and Iran during the Obama's time. For example, between 2012 and 13, United Kingdom and Iran had been working actually in official way in trade area and economic area, and officially Switzerland was as neutral state. Switzerland, Swiss embassy was just taking care of British interests in Iran, and Oman embassy was just taking care of Iranian portfolios in the United Kingdom. So indirectly, they have been very useful tool by the both sides, because both sides were and are believing and they trust actually Oman, like Switzerland actually, as a mediator in the region. But the peak point of Oman's diplomacy in mediatorship was seen in 2015, according to Hillary Clinton's and later John Kerry, later Zarif, Iran's Minister of Foreign Affairs, officially, in accordance with their official announcements, Oman was first facilitator. What is the meaning of facilitator? As everybody knows, just providing the place and secure area, and but they were not just intervening in negotiation. But later, Oman became mediator. What does it mean, mediator? They have just offered one of the solution alternatives on the negotiation table. So Oman became mediator in 5+1 Iran nuclear talks, including at that time Catherine Ashton, actually United European Union's foreign affairs minister, was there too. So it was a biggest success among these giants. A small country is becoming mediator. Small country. The population is 2.4, including expatriates 4.2 million. Size, you can see actually, country size, economic, capacity is seen. GDP per capita was very high until 2 years before because of pandemic, because of Brent petroleum price declines actually. Per capita is going down, but was one of the top 10. But again, it was small country in terms of military, in terms of economy, in terms of population, country size. Yani hard power, Oman's soft power was and is actually pretty much more bigger than Oman's hard power, definitely. For example, Oman became mediator in Yemen, was actually invited 3 times between 2016 and 2019, the Yemeni issue, but it didn't work. Oman mediated actually in Qatar issue, in GCC meetings also in the last 3 years, and it worked actually, thank God, but hopefully it's going to continue. For example, in 2020, more than 1.5 years before, and they tried actually to be a back channel between Palestine and Israel, but Netanyahu, has just abused it. After the meeting, actually, just put all pictures. It was actually hidden. It was secret back channel meeting, but 10 minutes later, Israeli side actually put it on the website, so it didn't work. But they tried actually to be a mediator also between Israel and Iran in 2020. So these are the big successes actually of Oman's diplomacy in between this Western side and Iranian side. But when we talk about diplomacy, when we talk about Omani diplomacy, we have to talk about not just mediator, but also I'm calling it actually as a kind of balanced diplomacy in a triangle, as I said at the beginning of my presentation. You could see Oman. This is my drawing. Actually, it is one side is Iran, one side is Euro-Atlantic zone, especially America, United Kingdom, France. Actually, Germany started a little bit, slowly. Turkey started very, slowly, but they are now in the Gulf by Qatar. Even over here, they made military agreements actually with Oman also. So new European actors, old United States and United Kingdom and France. New European actors, Germany and Turkey, and non-European actors in the Gulf now. Russia and China, they are trying to come. They are trying to intervene. China, especially by using economic tools. Now, 87% of Omani petroleum is going to China. There's no way out because America became now competitor instead of being a customer, after the shale oil 2016, as you know. You could see Oman, center point is the blue one. And red point is Oman. Means Oman is closer to GCC, means Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, because of the historical reasons, because of the cultural reasons, because of the religionic reasons, definitely. Cultures is, from outside, actually, you cannot see the difference. Actually, when you live over here, for example, Florian knows, definitely, you can see the difference between Emirati and Omani. But these are slight and tiny differences, actually. If you don't live over here, you cannot understand. From outside, we can say, actually, this is Gulf culture. But when we come in, actually, definitely there are big differences. And for them, they say this is big difference. For the Europeans, actually, it is not a big difference, definitely. So, but I'm looking at the stage, as a European eye, so I see actually Oman is still actually closer to the Gulf because of the history, language, culture, religionic reasons, common, things. But they are, you can see GCC in the corner, Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar on that corner. Qatar actually, little bit actually, far from it now. I prepared that one previously. So, but Oman is not getting, deliberately does not get closer to the GCC. They don't go to the corner of the GCC. On the other side, Euro-Atlantic zone, United Kingdom, US, France, Turkey, Germany, now they have very, very good relations with them also. But on the other hand, very deviated model in the GCC, they have good relations with Iran too. They are trying to be in the middle. They are not in the exactly center point. Definitely, it is not on the center point. But Oman is the closest Gulf country to Iran because, they see Iran as a big giant, country, and Oman is the closest country to Iran. If Iran and Saudi Arabia goes to conflict, if they incur war, Oman geostrategically will be in danger, and Oman knows this actually. That's why one of the reasons geostrategic, definitely. Actually, Hormuz Strait, watcher is Oman also on the southern side, and the northern side, Iran. So Oman has different geostrategic, geopolitical reasons actually. If you ask, actually, I will go deeper, but this is the fact which I see. Oman is almost in the center point in this triangle, which I call it actually tended balance. Tended, they are trying to tend to Iran from GCC side and Euro-Atlantic zone to balance, to be a Gulfian country. It is not just only Gulfian country from this side it is seen, but also diplomacy. When we talk about Omani diplomacy, respected faculty members, scholars, you could see the silency in Omani diplomacy. Silency. They are silent. They achieve something, they step back. They don't show off. They try actually not to be on the newspapers. They are calling the newspapers, televisions, and they say, don't advertise. Don't. People are asking, journalists actually have been asking, the reportage with them. They say no. So they are silent. Why? In my opinion, because of three reasons. One of them, imagine a small country in between two giants. A mini country, one side is, population 100 million, the other side is 26 million, Saudi Arabia. It is a big population for Oman, because Oman's population 2.4 nationals, okay? And in terms of country size, one side is Iran, one side is Saudi Arabia. So they feel themselves, let's say, like Poland, okay, between Germany and Russia, okay? Actually, less than this even in terms of the power level, okay? So Oman is in between a small size power country, in between two militarily, in terms of population, in terms of military, in terms of GDP, economy, even also GDP, not GDP per capita, but in terms of country size, but especially militarily, They are in between two giants. They feel it with this way. And if I am heard by Saudi Arabia, I am helping Iran, it is going to be bad for Oman. If I am working with Saudi Arabia, if Iran hears it, it is going to be trouble for me. So that's why they are doing a kind of silent diplomacy in between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And the second reason, they have good relations actually in between those two countries. And those two countries are on the paper actually enemies. They have antagonistic relations. So even, but it is not just this. Please check. This is the please check the map. This is the golden era of Oman in 1600, 1700, 1800, until United Kingdom, France, and Germany came to that part. Zanzibar, Tanzania, Kenya, Somalia. Oman was there, and they became actually a kind of neighbors with them. Think about that. Oman was a big maritime empire, and they have now Omani diaspora there. We have done actually surveys, we have done interviews, we have done that, and you can find actually my article actually Omani diaspora. It is coming, I think, 3 weeks later. So you could see from Somalia until Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Zanzibar, Pakistan, Iran, you could find a lot of people, they feel themselves they are Omani. So we can call them actually Omani diaspora, but even Oman has zero attempt, zero effect on this Omani diaspora in the region. They are very silent. And when we ask them why, because you can use this diaspora as a win-win with the regional local countries and Oman, for example, as a mediator, as a bridge to establish your economic relations with Kenya, with Tanzania. They say we are neutral, we don't talk with our diaspora. So they are silent, and they are very sensitive, they are very attentive actually in those kind of silency in their diplomacy. And also I call it actually humble diplomacy. We are talking with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They don't say, they don't show off, unlike the European ministers. I worked in the United States, I worked in Belgium, Catholic University, I worked in Spain, Barcelona Autonomous University, I worked in Sweden, Malmö University, I worked in Turkey. I have seen the European ministers because there are elections, they have to make a show of. Maybe over here we have elections too. Oman has elections too, but ministers are appointed actually like presidential system from outside. That's why, in accordance with their skills and experiences, so they don't need actually to show off over here. Maybe because of this, one of the reasons, the domestic politics, I'm not sure, but definitely Omani culture also is based on the humbleness. They have seen the world, unlike Saudi Arabia, Emirates, in their history, in the last 500, 600, 700 years. They had a kind of multicultural country from Pakistan to Mozambique. They got married with these people, and they changed their everything actually. Their culture changed. And when you have a kind of empire historical background, humbleness comes automatically. People respect them. When I was just coming to Oman from Emirates, American University in the Emirates, I worked there. I was working there. I came from there, and Emirati people said, "Oh, you are going to most civilized people." They said this. Emirati people. They just, they just separated from Oman. And they say, you are going to most civilized Arab people. They told me. I didn't know. I'm talking about 9 years before. So they are humble. And people are praising them, but they are humble. This humbleness actually, very interesting. They reflects to diplomacy too, to their diplomacy too. and because of the historical background, they are already matured, you know, and it is seen in their DNAs, in their public life, in their thinking style, in their living style. So it reflects to diplomacy too as a humble, very interestingly. For example, they just done actually perfect mediatorship between Qatar and the other 4 GCC countries to ameliorate actually their relations. And journalists are asking, did you do the mediatorship? And he is answering, Minister of Foreign Affairs answers, no, it was actually among the brothers and the problem was solved. It doesn't say actually I have done it. So you could see this humbleness actually in their diplomacy too. But as a last slide, but if we do actually game theory, if we make a kind of the futuristic expectations, if any kind of conflict occurs in the region, real conflict, war, if war comes to the region, real war, you know, for example, if America goes war against Iran, at that time, real wartime, not conflictual time, but wartime, definitely Oman will choose American side. It is seen easily. But during the peacetime, Oman has been trying and will try, in my humble opinion, in the next decades also, to stay neutral, like Sweden or Switzerland or Norway. Actually, it comes to me a little bit Austrian style. And Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, you know, they are trying to be fully maybe neutral, but Austrian style sometimes actually becoming active neutrality. They are neutralized, but they are active. Oman's diplomacy is very close to that Austrian style. During the wartime, they go to the western side. During the peacetime, you know, they are trying to be neutral. Austrian style of, let's say, neutrality. You could see actually during the wartime, for example, in 1991 and 2003, America, you know, attacked on Iraq in Kuwait war, right? First Gulf War, second Gulf War. Definitely, Oman took a side on the American side, and America used Masira Island and Seep. You know, Florian knows it. You know, in Seep, because it is very close to geotech in Oman. There is an American base, so they use it, and they are taking automatically on American side. So we can say actually the closest country to the West among the GCC during the war times, but during the peacetime also they are used actually as a back channel. Futuristic expectation. We pray to God actually there is no, you know, we hope there will be no war in the region, and it is not seen. I'm not realist school representative. I am a little bit liberal and constructive school representative. So I don't believe war is going to come to the region. But if it comes, yeah, you know, between America or between United Kingdom or Iran, something. So you will see Oman is going to be side of the Western side. So this is my mini summary about Oman's diplomacy. If you have any question, I will be very happy to share my ideas with you all. Thank you very much for your listening.